After an excruciatingly long wait, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is finally here. If you're one of the 5 people on this channel who are keeping up with my social medias, you will know that this game has ranked among my favourites of all time, up there with the original Breath of the Wild and the likes of Halo 3. It's pretty universally agreed upon that this game is unquestionably good for the most part, but people have had some questions about the story. Questions that I want to set out to answer so the game's story is more clear for people. One of the big questions I've seen floating around when this game's story is discussed is, what was Calamity Ganon? So you've got this super evil scary guy Ganondorf here, right? He wants to take over the world, kill everyone, yada yada yada. But yet, didn't Link and Zelda just destroy Ganon in the previous game? How is he back? Is this even the same person? And if it's not, what was this? This was something I was very confused about too going into the game, but Tears of the Kingdom does explain these discrepancies. Many people may not have seen them on their playthrough because it's not a major plot point, they don't make a big deal out of it, but if you dig around you can find an explanation, and I want to share that with you. So I have found 2 spots that explain what Calamity Ganon was and how he relates to Ganondorf in this game. The first one is the tried and true Calamity Ganon exposition machine, Impa. Upon completion of the Dragon's Tear questline, Impa will return home to Kakariko village where you can find her in her house. There she has a bunch of dialogue to tell Link, with one particular set of dialogue pertaining to the Calamity. So let's see what she has to say. The Calamity was the demon king of ancient times, brought back to existence in the form of hatred manifest. Some of our youths believe the Calamity to be mere legend. You and I know better, of course. From there, Impa points to the painting of the battle against Calamity Ganon from 10,000 years ago, and then recaps the events that image is supposed to represent to the player. Dude, the people who put Age of Calamity together are gonna have the biggest shock of their lives when they see this dialogue. So, what was the Great Calamity Ganon? After being sealed by King Rauru, Ganondorf was beneath Hyrule Castle for a long time. Bare minimum, over the 10,000 years that Breath of the Wild story takes place over, there are at least 2 calamities, but it's implied that there are more. He could have been down there for upwards of 100,000 years. And through all of that time, Ganondorf spent it as basically a living corpse, hunched over in constant, unending agony, as a direct result of his last-minute loss against King Rauru. And throughout all of that time, the shriveled up, dejected mummy as the man once known as Ganondorf's hatred for the people on the surface that defeated him would manifest time and time again into the hatred and malice incarnate, Calamity Ganon. This explains things from Breath of the Wild like, where's the Gerudo mail? And how can you defeat Calamity Ganon without the sword that seals the darkness? How can Calamity Ganon always comes up from directly underneath Hyrule Castle? This is because really, this was not the true form of Ganon. This was a projection of the rage and hatred Ganondorf had for the people on the surface that defeated him so long ago. Hatred and malice incarnate. Now, the other piece of information that I find to be particularly important to the dynamic between these 2 characters can be found within the character bio you unlock for Ganondorf upon completing the game. And the information in here did genuinely shock me a little. So, let's see what this has to say. Ganondorf was imprisoned beneath Hyrule Castle for ages, but the magic holding him weakened when the castle was damaged during the Calamity a century ago, and his power has steadily been growing since. Now, he has been revived as a threat beyond the knowledge of any. Link and Zelda had no part in Ganondorf freeing himself at the start of the game. This was all him. The reason that there was so much gloom accumulating in the caves, the thing that caused Link and Zelda to even investigate beneath the castle in the first place, was because the Great Demon King was at the final stage of his 100 years of rebuilding his strength. Link and Zelda simply walked in at the worst possible time. I really love this plot detail. I'm a big fan of cause and effect stuff in fiction like this, and knowing that the damage caused to Hyrule Castle was the direct reason for the events of the sequel taking place is a really cool plot point to me that adds a ton of connective tissue between these 2 wonderful games. So, to recap, Ganondorf was sealed by King Rauru and then left in a cave for upwards of 100,000 years, where the hatred within him would build up and manifest itself on the surface every once in a while. This reoccurring phenomenon would come to be known as Calamity Ganon. His most recent appearance, the one which the plot of Breath of the Wild centers around, caused so much damage to the structure of Hyrule Castle that it weakened the seal on Ganondorf, allowing him to build up his power and then break free, which set the stage for the event that would come to be known as the Upheaval. Like and subscribe, please.